All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at a super fascinating and honestly pretty urgent dynamic: how society actually handles massive new communication mediums when they turn into engines for spreading misinformation. We're going to trace this whole journey, literally all the way from the early days of radio waves right up to today's complex algorithms. It's a crazy story of disruption, reaction, and the ongoing fight for truth. Let's kick things off with this quote from Jonathan Swift. He wrote this way back in 1710. Falsehood flies and truth comes limping after it, so that when men come to be undeceived, it is too late. The jest is over and the tale hath had its effect. This just proves that our modern fake news crisis, it isn't actually some new internet phenomenon. It's a timeless human problem. The stakes and the speed, sure, they've changed drastically, but human nature, yeah, that really hasn't. Part 1. Echoes of the Past. The 1930s radio disruption. So long before social media was even a blip on the radar, the world went through a massive communication disruption thanks to the radio. Suddenly, charismatic figures had unfiltered access right into people's living rooms. And we can actually trace the exact sequence of this: the technological disruption, the deplatforming, and eventual regulation through the story of Father Charles Coughlin. He was this charismatic priest who basically weaponized radio. He started out in 1926 really just trying to grow his church flock. But when the Great Depression hit, he shifted gears. He tapped into all that public anger, pivoted to political commentary, and even formed his own political organization by 1934. His rhetoric just kept escalating over the years, culminating in a 1938 broadcast where he defended the violence of Kristallnacht, literally blaming the victims. Obviously, this crossed a massive line. It led broadcasters to change their codes, and by 1940 he was forced off the air completely. Now, the absolutely crucial point here is scale. 30 million. At his absolute peak, Father Coughlin was reaching up to 30 million listeners every single week. To put that into perspective for you, the entire U.S. population at the time was only about 120 million. He was shaping public opinion and mobilizing massive real-world action until the radio stations finally stepped in. They started demanding script approvals in advance just to stop the incitement of hate and religious persecution. It was basically a private industry scrambling to respond to a massive public crisis. And this historical disruption perfectly illustrates our modern dilemma. A little over 10 years ago, social media sparked the next major communications shift. It gave rise to this powerful new trinity, right? Influencers, algorithms, and crowds. Just like the radio did back in the day, this new tech toppled traditional hierarchies and amplified totally new voices. But of course, it also flooded us with an endless supply of unfiltered information. This allowed modern demagogues, people with that exact same charismatic talent, to cultivate entirely bespoke realities for their followers. Part 2. AI fact-checking tools. The tech response. Now, what's really fascinating about where we are today is that algorithms aren't just the problem. They're actually increasingly the solution. We're relying heavily on AI fact-checking tools to combat this massive scale of digital misinformation. To wrap our heads around how this works, we need to look at tech like Google's BERT and this concept called transfer learning. Think of these AI models like a superpowered digital assistant. They don't just read the words on a page, they can textually encode them to truly understand the underlying meaning. And transfer learning, that allows researchers to take this massive general-purpose brain and fine-tune it for highly specific tasks, like, say, figuring out if a news article supports or rejects a specific medical claim. So here's how that tech is practically applied by organizations like FullFact and SciFact. They use this really clever hybrid workflow. First, the AI breaks down the text. Second, it identifies and classifies the exact types of claims being made. Third, and this is a massive time saver, guys, it matches those claims against a giant database of stuff that's already been fact-checked. Finally, it sends only the unmatched high-priority claims over to the human reviewers. So essentially, machine learning does the heavy lifting, saving human fact-checkers from having to verify every single minor variation of a lie that's already been debunked 100 times. It's humans and AI working hand in hand. Part 3. Tracking bots and fakes, network-level monitoring. Zooming out from those individual claims for a second, platforms face this absolutely massive challenge of scale. Because it's not just about what is being said, right? It's about how it's being artificially amplified, especially when the misinformation isn't just text, but maybe a visual meme or a doctored photo. Your standard keyword search just isn't going to cut it anymore. That is exactly where reverse image search comes in. Modern systems use these deep learning autoencoders to essentially assign mathematical latitude and longitude coordinates to images based on their visual structure. So even if a picture is slightly cropped or altered, the AI mathematically maps it and places it right near the original in this vast digital space. This is exactly how fact checkers uncover photos that are being deceptively used totally out of context. And honestly, the best part is that you don't have to be some tech giant to use these network monitoring tools. Anyone, you, me, anyone, can explore this digital battlefield using public machine learning tools. We're talking about tools like Bot Sentinel, which tracks detected bot behavior, Botometer, which estimates if a specific account is actually a real human being, and Bot Slayer, which is designed to sniff out coordinated hashtag campaigns. These are available to you right now to help make sense of whether a trending topic is genuine or if it's completely synthetically manufactured. Part 4. The Content Moderation Debate, the Human Complication. Okay, let's dive into the messy reality here. When dealing with flagged content, human policy really complicates things. Technology is amazing at flagging the content, sure, but once it does, humans still have to decide what actually stays online. And there is this absolutely crucial distinction that so often gets lost in the noise. The difference between simply hosting content versus giving it algorithmic reach. You see, platforms generally want to maximize free expression, so they'll often allow controversial posts to just exist on their servers. But the real fight, it isn't usually about the right to speak, it's about the right to algorithmic reach. Platforms will frequently restrict sensitive content from trending, from being recommended, or from making ad money. Let's look at a recent event that perfectly demonstrates this exact tension. Back in 2023, the Daily Wire planned to stream their documentary, What is a Woman, for free on Twitter. However, Twitter's trust and safety team reviewed it and actually applied a hateful conduct label due to policy violations. What this did was temporarily restrict the film's visibility and its ability to generate ad revenue. It was still hosted on the site, but its reach was heavily throttled. Well, this sparked a massive online clash over whether the platform was enforcing its rules fairly or just straight up censoring specific viewpoints. Ultimately, it resulted in Elon Musk himself stepping in to remove the labels and restrictions. Now, this brings up a really fascinating psychological tactic. Psychologist Robert Cialdini actually predicted this dynamic perfectly. He noted that getting restricted, or even just claiming that you're being shadow banned, is now an active strategy for a lot of people. Think about it. Publicizing the censorship often garners way more attention and sympathy for a weak or unpopular view than simply broadcasting the view itself. It's what researchers call working the refs, basically framing moderation as an unfair attack to really rally your base. So, the big question, how do we actually fix this and avoid these endless culture wars? Well, experts point to 3 objective guideposts. First up, ground moderation frameworks in established international human rights law, effectively balancing free expression with human dignity. Second, rely on actual empirical research to figure out what causes real-world harm, carefully separating that from mere moral panic. And third, this one's big, prioritize transparency. Platforms absolutely need clear enforcement rules and obvious appeals processes. If someone's reach is throttled, they should know exactly why. Remove the mystery, because that mystery is exactly what feeds conspiracy theories. To wrap things up today, I want to leave you with a really vital question, inspired by the philosopher Karl Popper. He asked how a tolerant society survives if it tolerates those who wish to destroy it. In our modern era, that question kind of shifts to this. How do we balance the absolute necessity of free speech with the survival of a shared, tolerant reality? How do we amplify diverse voices without letting algorithms artificially manufacture our consent? It is arguably the defining challenge of our information age. But, understanding the tools and tactics we've discussed today, that's the very first step in finding the answer. Thanks so much for exploring this with me today.